Let us begin by naming the thing we are dealing with. I call it the narrator, the voice that speaks in your head before you have decided what to think. It is not the judge, it is the first draft. Sometimes benevolent, sometimes harsh, always familiar. Our task is neither to obey it nor to silence it, but to bring it under discipline so that what it says can be trusted, especially when the stakes are real. The ancients give us the first crucial distinction. For the Stoics, consciousness is pelted by impressions, fantasiae. Between an impression and your action lies a gap. Assent, Epictetus, Enchiridion. Freedom lives there. You do not control the weather of impressions, you control whether to grant them citizenship. Marcus Aurelius puts it tersely, you govern your faculty of judgment, whatever else you cannot govern. Meditations. This is where our practice of the two clocks was born. The Assent Clock, a brief pause to interrogate the first draft, reins in the reflex to agree with yourself too quickly. The Signature Clock, a slightly longer pause that forces terms onto paper, keeps your mouth from mortgaging your future. Existentialists intensify the responsibility. Kierkegaard defines the self as a relation that relates itself to itself, not a static substance, but an ongoing act, the sickness unto death. Sartre calls the refusal of that responsibility bad faith, hiding behind roles and scripts to disclaim authorship, being and nothingness. Nietzsche adds the knife's edge, amor fati, the love of one's fate, and the demand to become who you are by selecting, arranging, and affirming. The gay science, ecce homo. Together they instruct the narrator, you are not a passive audience to your thoughts, you are the author who must edit them to the point of truth. Viktor Frankl provides the existential therapeutic bridge. Even when stripped of nearly everything, one freedom remains, to choose one's stance toward what is given, to take up meaning as a task, man's search for meaning. That is not a sentimental claim. It is a bitterly earned one. It is also the intellectual root of our meaning brief, a one-page weekly act in which you name the facts you cannot change, the agency you still possess, the values you will serve, and the first verifiable step. Logotherapy is not positive thinking, it is truthful direction. Phenomenology supplies a method. Husserl's epoche bracketing suspends the rush to judgment so the thing can be seen as it is, ideas 1. In practice, you set your thought in brackets, trust your gut, and ask, what precisely does this mean? What evidence supports it? What would disconfirm it? Much mischief dissolves when vague slogans are forced into clear sentences. Wittgenstein would nod. Many philosophical knots are knots of language, philosophical investigations. Trust your gut can mean trained pattern recognition, or it can mean avoidance dressed as wisdom. Clarify the words. The spell weakens. Modern cognitive therapy shows the same pattern in clinical terms. Beck mapped the distortions, catastrophizing, mind-reading, overgeneralization, and taught patients to dispute them with evidence. Beck, cognitive therapy, and the emotional disorders. Ellis pushed hard against irrational beliefs, insisting on rigorous disputation and behavioral tests. Ellis, Reason and Emotion in Psychotherapy. If Stoicism gave us the Assent Clock, CBT gives us the habit of writing the claim, testing it, logging the prediction, and scoring it later. The ledger that keeps confidence honest. Camus starts somewhere bleaker. The world does not owe us a coherent script. It offers the absurd. His answer is revolt. Lucid, daily fidelity to chosen values, absent cosmic guarantees. The myth of Sisyphus. This is the spirit of our rescue protocol when we slip. Do not dramatize the failure. Repair it lucidly. Adjust the design. Carry on. No theatrics required. And there is the matter of how we live together. Buber's I Thou insists that persons are not instruments or mirrors. Truth is spoken between subjects, not at objects. Peterson's practical admonition follows. Surround yourself with people who want the best for you, who will tell you the truth and help you pay its cost. 12 rules for life. That is the philosophical foundation of our harbor table, the snoring house circle where plans are steel-manned, dissent is assigned, and promises are read back next week in daylight. The inner voice becomes more credible when it has been tested against other minds you respect. Now, the pathologies. There are two counterfeit inner voices. The first is the tyrant, contemptuous, unrelenting, calling itself discipline. It produces brittle performance and secret collapse. The second is the charmer, indulgent, relentlessly optimistic, calling itself self-care. It produces quiet chaos and public surprises. Aristotle stands between them with phronesis, practical wisdom, and with Skoll, leisure, as an end, not merely a means, Nicomachean ethics. Too much order suffocates, too much chaos dissolves. You require just enough structure to be reliable, and just enough play to remain human. That is why our book made room for play, beauty, and rest, not as hacks for productivity, but as goods that justify the rest of the enterprise. How then do we operationalize all of this without draining it of life? Our narrative offered 3 recurring scenes. First, the shop floor. You stop treating days as battlefields to be won by slogans and treat them like a workshop that opens, produces, and closes. Opening, the ledger, the brief look at what is within control. Production, one hard block before the world takes a bite, then the rest in sized pieces. Closing, a note to tomorrow and the refusal to steal from sleep to pay for fantasy. This is Aristotelian habit meeting Stoic steadiness, measured by a Beck-style ledger. Second, the harbor table. Weekly on schedule, you put your promises in public and let others test them. You rotate the dissent chair so that optimism always meets its adult counterpart. Evidence. This is Socratic method without the toga, Buber's I-thou with ledgers, Peterson's Rule 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back, translated into the spine of a plan. Third, the Tuesday night slip. You will relapse, say yes at the wrong time, forget to write the terms, conflate kindness with ambiguity. The fix is not self-flagellation. It is Frankl's freedom exercised in Camus' key. Confess precisely, make amends proportionate to the harm, install a safeguard for us, no late-night assent, and return to work. Nietzsche would call this self-overcoming. The Stoics would call it correction rather than condemnation. A word about truth. Speech creates reality at the interpersonal level. Promises bind. Kant is useful here. Act only on maxims you could will universal. No material work without written terms is not cynicism. It is a way of willing a world where trust does not rely on memory. In our practice that became the one-page term sheet, the definition of done, the change order, and, importantly, the kill switch agreed upon in advance. The inner voice becomes less self-deceptive when the outer speech is built to carry load. Lest this sound mechanistic, remember the cat in Rule 12. You cannot live on systems alone. The narrator grows sane when it is periodically allowed to say nothing, to be stunned by a heron lifting off a tide flat, or by a child asleep with a book half fallen from her hand. Rest and play are not negotiable instruments. They are the places where gratitude interrupts the compulsion to harvest every moment for use. A person who cannot be interrupted by beauty will weaponize every philosophy into labor. What, finally, is the imperative? It is straightforward and unromantic. Treat yourself as someone you are responsible for helping. Speak the truth as you can manage it. Bind your promises to structures that survive your moods. Seek out a room that will help you carry the cost of clarity. Accept that meaning is made under pressure, not discovered by accident. Then, when you fail, and you will, repair without theater and let the redesign outlive the apology. Our story has shown that this is possible in the small, a morning ledger, a harbor table, a Tuesday correction. The narrator, once a clever talker, becomes a craftsman. Its sentences carry weight. They grow slow enough to match reality and quick enough to meet the day. In that transformation lies the point of this whole enterprise, to become a person whose inner voice can be believed by you first, and then by the people who have to live with you.